Well, hello, I'm Devora Wilde and I'm an actor. Actor, voice actor, although I think they're the same thing. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell, in a very small nutshell,
In a very small, in
which which we're gonna crack open now.
a very small sealed pistachio that's going to
A
give you
very
5 minutes of
exactly a
headache.
tiny pistachio, which by the end is going to turn into a big pistachio tree. No, that analogy didn't make any sense, but there you go.
I mean, if that's how they worked, I would invest in pistachios 100%. Uh,
Yeah. Do they grow on trees? I guess we're
I
gonna
don't even
find
know.
out.
Well, I know what I'm Googling after we're done with this.
Yeah, me too. Actually, genuinely need to know right now.
Deborah, when did you find a knack or a passion for acting? Because I will, and everyone will agree who's been on this podcast, and I will agree myself. It is an insane business for us to get into. So what
It
sparked
really
your interest?
is. It really is when you think about actually like what you're doing day in, day out and how much like rejection there is. I don't know, like you gotta be a certain type of crazy to do this, don't you? I mean, you really
Yeah.
do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so I don't, look, there's cassette recordings of me because I grew up in the 90s when it was like cassette time of me singing quite out of tune, might I add, some sort of I'm Bulgarian, so some like Bulgarian songs and declaring proudly on tape, which I think I have somewhere by the way, um, that I will be a singer or an actress, like declaring that from like the age of I don't know, 5 or 6 and quite confidently, might I add, despite the out of tune singing. But that's really, I suppose, I always knew, like deep down, but my path to acting was quite long because I come from like quite a traditional family of doctors and yeah, medical professionals. So going off to do acting wasn't necessarily the safe choice. So I did other stuff first. I went to university. I did English, and then I did a master's in fashion journalism, and then I went to drama school. Finally, after all that,
Okay, how did
yeah.
you go from English to fashion journalism? I have to hear more about that.
Well, so it was. I finished my English course around the time when it like blogging had just started, like coming up. It was around I don't know 2011, 2012.
Okay.
You know when like blogs were blowing up and people doing like fashion blogs and
Yeah.
it just I think like, it was like the dawn of like Tumblr and people like starting to post stuff online because obviously we didn't have YouTube, or I don't, at least I don't think YouTube was around then. We didn't have really social media like Instagram and stuff, so I was spending a lot of time like reading those kinds of blogs, and I was like, okay, well I've I'm doing English, or I'm about to finish my English degree, and I guess fashion is something that I'm interested in, having read all these blogs and following all these blogs, and so it would be quite cool. And I was probably influenced by the Devil Wears Prada. I don't know what year that came
I
out,
was
but
waiting
probably it
for
was
that.
probably around the same time. Yeah, and I was just like, oh, maybe this would be fun. Maybe this would be something like fun to do. Yeah, turns out it wasn't really for me. It
Was it just
wasn't really.
the I don't know what the nature of that would be, but what about
I
it
don't
made you go,
know.
I don't know.
I don't know what the nature. I did the whole course and I still couldn't tell you really what it's about. I mean, it's funny because I did it and I still, while I was acting, I was still writing like articles and I worked for, a few websites and stuff, writing stuff. But um, I think what really got me was that I was doing some internships while I was doing my fashion journalism course. And I was like, okay, now I'm going to go to this like big magazine. Oh, I'm going to, yeah, be like literally the Devil Wears Prada, like in my nice clothes. And I'm going to be interviewing like, I'm going to be interviewing all the celebs and I don't know, writing about their clothes. Yeah, no, I just sat in a cupboard folding clothes for like 2 weeks. Yeah, because all the
What?
clothes that they get from shoots, they're not bought clothes, they're lent out by
Mhm.
designers and stuff. And then that all gets shoved in a cupboard, which is fairly big, by the way. It's like a room, essentially. And the interns at that time, I really hope it's not like that anymore, but that's what we had to do. We had to fold all the clothes and pack them away and send them back to the relevant designers. So that's what we did. And I was like, okay, maybe this is gonna be the first few days. And then
Mhm.
I was like, maybe it's gonna be the first week. And then the second week I'll be there with my like notepad. I'll be interviewing the subs. No, it was like that for every single internship and it was like the whole time. And I was just like, you know what? It's not worth it. It's not worth it. For me, it wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
For somebody, probably would have been worth it. But for me, I was just like, no. Because then I was asking some of the girls there, I said, how long do you have to fold clothes to actually, speak to a human being or sit behind a computer and write something? And they were like, oh, maybe like a year, unpaid, by the way, unpaid. And then, yeah, and then maybe, you'll get to have like a junior position. I just thought, F this. Don't love it enough. You know, just don't love it enough to
Oh
do
yeah.
that.
Meanwhile, you could be laid off at any time or let go at any time when
Well, yeah, and you're not getting
send.
paid, and all of this stuff is all these opportunities are in London. So, like, how are you supposed to live in
Yeah.
London, not getting paid? I don't know. I don't know how people do. I mean, obviously, people with sort of privileged families and rich families can afford to do it, but you're sort of most people can't afford to do that. And also, it's boring. It's so boring folding clothes. So boring. But then when I think about all the stuff that I do for acting and all the like the stuff that I've done that's probably not dissimilar to that, when you pay your dues as an actor. But I don't think of it in that way because I see it as like, okay, then it's the next step, then it's the next step. And I just think the difference is really that you love it enough to go
Mhm.
through all that stuff.
Oh yeah,
Really. Don't
absolutely.
you think?
Oh, I think the first 5 years of me just jumping into this was doing, student short films and
Exactly.
very low paying in perpetuity buyouts for industrials,
Oh
that
God.
kind of thing where,
Oh,
uh,
those in perpetuity buyouts are gonna well, they've already come back to bite me in the am I allowed
have
to swear
they?
on this?
Oh yeah, you can cuss.
Yeah. They've already come back to bite me in the ass several times. So I regret those now, like greatly.
Oh yeah, now because I'm sure they track you and say, "Oh, well, she's her numbers have boosted. Let's re-release that commercial."
Probably, yeah. But oh God, I'm never signing away my life doing that, I tell you.
No, 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 no,
Yeah.
no. Well,
No, no,
I'm
no.
talking about pivoting and going from English to fashion journalism, folding clothes in the closet, and then going into acting. What were your parents? What was their reaction to that? Because I would assume they'd think, "Oh, well, she's leaving the fashion industry. She's going to go into law. She's going to go into medicine."
Nope. No, look, I think at that point I'd proven that I'd done some like serious stuff and that I would follow through the things. I wouldn't sort of abandon things halfway through. I'd do the I'd get my degrees and I'd do it. But then I just thought at one point, like, if I don't do it now, I'll never do it, and then I'll be really sad because I've never tried it. And they were fine actually. They were quite supportive. They're not that they've never not been supportive. They've always been supportive. They've just been like, make sure you have a safety net because and honestly I get that now because there was a lot of times when my actor friends at the beginning would be working in bars, working in restaurants, waiters, whatever. And I was quite lucky that I could sit at home and write some articles and that would get me by. So really it was a sensible choice. And also then I look back on it and I'm like, what? I don't think I'd change it because um, I got to have the university experience or the college experience, as you say in the US.
Yeah.
I got to have that, and I got to meet friends that are still friends for life, and I got to have that, yeah, that fun time and learn. Yeah, of course I learned stuff, but mostly I think university was a fun social experience that actually I wouldn't give up because drama school was very different to that. um University is university, and I think when you're young it's a fun thing to do.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
not saying I'm not saying to people go to university just to have fun. Don't do that, obviously. Don't do that. I'm not advocating that. But it was a sort of a life experience, I'd say, more so than a learning how to I don't know, learning how to write essays experience.
Yeah. Well, I've heard very interesting things about attending drama school over, especially in the UK, and
Yeah.
how,
What have you heard?
I've heard it's very militant and competitive depending on where you
Mm,
go.
it is, yeah.
And it just made me so thankful to have just, I was on the other side of the camera before I ever became an actor. So
Yeah.
I fell into this no schooling or whatever you want to call it outside of a couple college yeah, a couple college classes. But then going out into the world after college and exploring this career, I mean, Did you consider this to be something full time right off of the jump, or were you just, playing around with it and seeing what would happen?
Well, once I got into drama school, because I started applying to places and it hadn't even crossed my mind until I met a girl on the train going to the same drama school audition, because you have to audition here to get into drama schools, as I'm sure probably is the case in lots of places.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh, yeah, this is my seventh year in a row applying." And I was like, "What?" I was like, it hadn't even, and probably this is a good thing, it hadn't crossed my mind that you could apply to, say, 5 schools, which is what I did, not get into either of them, and then apply again 7 years in a row. And that hadn't even, luckily, luckily that hadn't seeped into my mindset, because my mindset was always like, I'm going to apply to 5, I'll get into at least 1. And that's exactly what happened. I got into 1. I got rejected from 4 and I got into 1. Thank fuck for that. Thank fuck. But when I heard this girl saying like, oh, she's applied for 7 years in a row, and I was like, God, would I really want to do that? Would I don't know. I hadn't thought about it. Luckily, I didn't have to think about it because I got in straight away. And honestly, once I got in, I think my attitude was very much like, it was hard work, and it was tough, because I hadn't really had any drama training up till then. But I think I just assumed that we would all go out at the end of that course and we would get an agent, and within the year we'd be at the Oscars collecting our awards, wearing our lovely dresses. That was my, I don't think I ever said it out loud, but I think that was my implicit assumption, because I think in my head, I always thought that getting into drama school was probably the tough bit. But once I was in, because obviously there's so many people that apply and so few get in, I was like, well, once I'm in, I'm in. After that, I'll get a good agent, and everything will go from there. Yeah, turns out that's not how it works. So just a little announcement for everybody. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little facade breakage to start with that part of the
Yes.
story.
Yeah, yeah.
How
And when
long
you're
did it
young
take?
as well, I think you also think like, oh, I'm the most talented, and obviously I'm going to go out and I'm going to be amazing, and I'm the best. And then you go out in the world and you realize that everybody is talented. It's not just you. Everybody is talented, and also there's a hell of a lot of actors, right? Hell of a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
actors.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And it used to be at least in the US, the more populous cities like Los Angeles or New York, just like it would be in London. But
yeah,
now even I'm in the middle of the US in a state called Colorado,
yeah.
and there are more actors here than I ever thought there would be, as far
It's
as just the
crazy.
sheer numbers of it. So,
It's the numbers, yeah, and also it's the
yeah.
accessibility now with social media. I think anybody can be seen. I think before you really had to be in one location and have the right agent and have the headshot, the physical, everything had to be physical. But now you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, easy.
Well, speaking of which, had self tapes been something pretty common on that side of the pond before COVID started, or did you just get used to making self tapes a little bit, or I guess around the same time that we did, 2020, 2021?
They certainly became more prevalent.
Hmm.
When I left drama school in 2012, it was pretty much all in the room auditions, and then gradually, as the years kind of continued, I was finding there to be more and more self tapes, more and more self tapes, and then with COVID, it just suddenly switched,
Yeah.
and it became all self tapes, and now it's still all self tapes,
Yeah.
which I don't love, by the way.
Really,
I
I was
don't
going to
love that.
ask you if you had a preference.
Right. Do you know what I am going to do though? I'm going to go and turn my washing machine off, because it's
Oh, I
going to
thought
make
that
an
was
annoying
mine.
beeping. No, it's mine, and it's going to annoy me. So hold tight. This is
Okay.
your quick washing machine break. Maybe time for you to Google if pistachios grow on trees.
You're a
Just putting it out
genius.
there.
You're a
It's going to take
genius.
me. It's going to take me 10 seconds though, so you better be quick.
Oh
Okay,
my
bye.
God. Okay. All right.
And I'm back. Do pistachios grow on trees?
So I am reading Google. Uh, it said the pistachio is a broad, bushy, deciduous tree which grows slowly to a height and spread of 20 to 25 feet with
Oh,
one
look at
or
that.
several trunks. That's
So there you
crazy.
go. Mm,
Well, now we know. Now we know.
now we know.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I had spaced out on Googling that.
Well, never forget. Never forget.
So let's talk about why you hate self tapes. I don't think a lot of people talk about,
Oh,
the very differing factors that go into in person versus a self tape. I kind of love self tapes for a weird reason. But what's your cross with self tapes?
I don't listen. It's not that I hate them. I hated them at the beginning for sure because I think that when you go into the room and you immediately get that rapport going with a physical human being who's in front of you, and you can say hello, and even if it's stupid things like hi, where did you come from today, how was the weather, like you get that sort of relationship going, um or not, or you don't, and you realize that actually you don't want to work with that person, they don't want to work with you, and that's fine. But with a self tape, I just I don't like the sterility of doing it without having that sort of human contact. I also don't like the fact that you can't get redirected, which you do get in the room. And I think that factor is crucial because as an actor, the team on the other side has to be sure that you can take redirection, and you can't get that with a self tape. Also, how do they know that you haven't spent like 5 hours doing this tape, 300 different takes, which sometimes, not sometimes, but I think all of us do because we want to get it just right. But once you're on set, you don't have that luxury. You have like one or two or three takes, or one, sometimes it doesn't. So I went through this real struggle because I hated them. And then I was like, okay, maybe I just need to learn to love them. And while I think I don't love them yet, I'm sort of I'm getting there. I'm getting there. But it's really hard. I also think like for me, I become quite self. That's my other cat, by the way. It's two of them. Um, I become quite self conscious. I watch it back, and I'm like, okay, that was a really good take, but oh, the hair here has fallen over my eyes, and
Yeah.
nobody cares about that. Nobody cares, but you watch it back and you become fixated on that, which doesn't happen in the room because you don't watch it back, and also you have like two or three goes and then you're done. And then yeah, and also and finishing off, I don't like the fact that you don't hear anything back.
That is the worst.
That's the worst. That's the worst because we put in so much effort, and I think that's a real shame. And also, I think it's an easy fix potentially. You can sort of mass email everybody and say thank you, but it wasn't you, and or whatever
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I there's a
Why do you
certain
love them then?
I
Give me the
I
flip side. Give me the flip side. Give me some.
I I guess because I'm also a screenwriter and I'm somebody who loves movies. I love storytelling. I'm able to direct myself, so I can. In the last few years,
Right.
I've said just fuck it to every audition and just done different things to not for me to stand up to them, but because I wanted to do them.
Yeah.
So I
And have you found you've been booking more stuff because of that?
I was, yeah. And of course,
Yeah.
with the strikes and everything, that's nothing's happening, but I've been writing
Yeah.
for, my own sake. And I will say that the vanity portion though still does stand out when, you look back on the playback and you go, oh, okay, I'm double chinning it. Let's raise the tripod up just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Or, you have a preference or preferred side and it's the most vain thing a human being can
It
do.
is.
But I just remember going into I would drive a half hour to an in-person audition for an industrial before I was, part of the union where it was a buyout and it wasn't paying that much, but I would still just not enjoy the in-person audition process because you're
Oh,
catapulted into a
really?
room. I just I should preface that by saying I love the film and TV form of that. But there's so many commercials here in my state that we were doing more of those than anything else. So when you went in
Yeah.
for commercials, it was just like all right, they're going to see you for 5 seconds, and then you're walking out, and then that's it. You just wasted gas
Oh,
and
commercials are
all this
brutal.
other stuff.
Commercials are brutal, and I
Yeah,
agree with you. I think that yeah, commercials I didn't enjoy because you walk into a room where everyone looks like you or similar to you, and yeah, they see you for 5 seconds. It's like the most ridiculous thing. Like, okay, now you're drinking a drink, and then a magical rocket is flying across the sky. So make sure you catch it, and then okay, you seeing the rocket, great, great, and then it explodes. And then you've got and it's all of that kind of stuff. And some of it's quite ridiculous. But you know
yeah.
what really pissed me off?
What?
I'll tell you what really pissed me off. I'm never
Oh
going to get
God.
an audition again after this, am I? But I'll tell you what really pisses me off. When commercials now ask you to self tape, and the instructions are about 3 pages long, and it's literally like
Yes.
you're running towards the end of you're running towards the cliff, then you're
Uh,
jumping down. Okay, now you're rolling across some grass, and then you're bursting into flames. Suddenly you're Superman. Okay, you're flying across. You're like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Like, how? First of all, do you think I live in a mansion? Where am I supposed to film this? Second of all, like, it's just bizarre to me. So
yeah.
that really annoys me. That annoys me. Like, I'll do that for a
Oh
film
yeah.
and TV. I think that's more than fair. But for a commercial, come on, get us in the room.
Yeah.
Get us in the room.
You know, I
You
have
can afford it.
like a 4 by 5 foot box where I can just do certain things, but I'm going to convey that this is actually happening for your audition. It's not going to look great, but I'll try.
Yeah.
It's the worst. Well, I do want to jump into because I had so much fun working in mocap. I think it was about 4 years ago now, and it was just a joy. So I want to talk to you about your mocap experience and doing
Yeah.
voiceover work for video games. Let's dive into it. Okay,
Let's dive.
did you enjoy it? I need to ask that first.
I did enjoy it a lot
Okay. Oh, thank
because
God.
I did
All
it
right.
for 4 years. Well, on
4 years.
Baldur's Gate 3, I did it for 4 years. I've done it on other projects as well. I've done facial capture as well,
Mm.
which, by the way, that one's tricky because the camera's out here and you suddenly feel like those anteaters, you know, those like
Yes.
anteaters with the really long snouts. That one, and it's quite heavy, but luckily we didn't have to do that for Baldur's Gate 3. Um, yeah, I did enjoy it. I think it took some getting used to because I'd never done it before, and it's weird. You're inhabiting this fantasy world, but you are in the most unimaginative grey box you can imagine. Like it's just grey and dull, and you have to imagine dragons and special plants and creatures and all sorts of things. But yeah, I did enjoy it. It's actually there's something quite freeing
Mm.
about not having to think about what your face is doing on camera, you know? Not
Yeah.
having to think about, I'm going to do a scene now and I'm really going to do this and I'm not going to blink because my acting teacher tells me that I shouldn't blink, but I really want to blink right now and my eyes are starting to water, but I'm going to hold the eye contact. Oh, it doesn't look natural anymore, does it? Oh my God, fucking hell. It's a lot. So I didn't have to think about that. And I think that's why I had fun. I could just focus on the body and the voice and yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Well, the facial capture part, at least in my experience, was the hardest thing to try and disassociate and not look directly at the camera, where you had
Yeah,
to
yeah, because
put
it's
up
right in
the
your face.
yeah. What was your I guess your best practice to eliminate doing that? Because for me, it was just not looking at anything and almost blurring your vision a little bit. Did you do
Well, we
anything like
didn't.
that?
Well, okay, so yeah, so for Baldur's Gate we didn't have that, but for the other project, luckily I wasn't. I mean, I say luckily, unluckily, I wasn't on it for a long time. So I guess I just had to, I don't know, just pretend it wasn't there. But it is quite hard, I think, because
Yeah.
that was a project as well where I was acting with other actors in the room, and we all had the cameras on, so you're trying to sort of see them, but you can't see them really. Um, yeah, that one's tough. I think the facial captures a little bit tough and probably could requires a little bit more practice from my end for sure.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I know what you mean. It's tough trying
Yeah.
to because it's right in your field of vision, so that's quite hard. Yeah.
I had to play a serial killer, and I had to do some really intense sequences. But every now and again, that lens would just reflect right back into my eyes. I'm like, okay, nope, nope, I'm back into it. We're good. We're good.
Also,
It's
the angle is very unflattering.
fine. When you look at the actual like
Oh my
recordings,
god, it's
it's
horrible.
so bad.
It's awful. It's awful. It's just like the worst angle. And yeah, it's just not pretty. So I don't recommend looking at that.
Well, we've talked a lot about, your experience, building your career and diving into the many different avenues you've taken, much like any other artist who's trying to live today. But
Yeah.
what keeps you spiritually satiated outside of work? I mean, what makes you happy? Hobbies, family, anything that
Oh,
comes to mind?
do you know what? I was just having this conversation today with somebody about how, like, we're motivated. I think a lot of actors are solely by acting,
Hmm.
and that's probably not very healthy and not very good because I find my moods and my general well-being is very linked to how well work is going and how well the acting is going. So that's I fully recognize that. It's not great. And I also fully recognize that I just, you know what, since I started taking doing full-time acting, I really haven't had that much time for anything. However, I will say I love traveling. Traveling is my well, it's not my vice, but it kind of is, because you end up spending so much money traveling the world, and there's never like, how am I going to see the whole world? Do you know what really gets me is like, I'm going to die and not see the whole world. That really gets
Really?
me.
Does that keep you up?
Yeah, that thought. Well, it doesn't keep me up, but 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 that thought sometimes, like, imagine there's corners of the world that you just like, we can't physically see the whole world.
Mhm.
That makes me kind of sad, you know? But
That is
anyway,
actually
we're not going to
really
be. It is. It is sad because it's like there's so many cultures and places and incredible things to see, and you just physically can't see it all. I mean, you probably could if you had an unlimited budget and that's all you were doing. You're just traveling around everywhere, but still, every single country in the world, every
yeah.
single corner of every single country in the world, it's impossible.
Yeah, you'd need a couple lifetimes to complete that,
You would,
I would
you
think.
would, you would. So I try and travel as much as I can whenever I can. So that's very good. I enjoy that. I play tennis. I haven't played tennis in a few months because I've recently got a baby. That's taking up a lot of my time. I've got a small baby. I've got a 5-month-old baby now,
Oh
so
my gosh.
that's taking up a lot of my time. But yeah, I think that it's so important to have something outside, and I say that knowing fully well that I don't have a lot going on outside of acting, and that's not great. But what do you do? I mean, what do you do?
Well, I want to say, like, hats off to you for you're raising a human being. So I think that's going to take
Yeah,
off a lot
yes.
of your time. Um, I mean, I'm a dog dad. I love my dog to pieces.
Oh,
He's the
of
best,
course.
but I'm
Mm.
also a former fat kid trying to never get fat again. So I'm always trying to do
Oh,
something healthy and athletic to,
okay.
keep myself going. But honestly, it's weird. I've gotten it's so weird. I've gotten back into reading. Something
Yes,
you don't do a whole lot, right?
reading.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. I recently got a new Kindle, and now I'm so excited to read. Reading,
Isn't it It's like a
yes.
drug. You're like, "Oh, this feels
So
great."
it really does. And do you remember those days when you could just read
Yeah.
without being distracted by your phone
Oh, I miss
or
those
anything?
days.
I
I
miss
I
those
miss
days.
them so much.
Yeah,
Yeah, reading is a huge, huge thing that's come back. I think a lot of people have done that, especially since, the days of the pandemic when we couldn't go anywhere and couldn't do anything.
yeah,
So that's happened. But, yeah, I think it's hard for actors to have other things because usually we're just working a service industry job or something most of the
yeah,
time and then acting.
absolutely.
I do want to see what sort of answer you have for we have just like two more questions here, but
That's fine. No, no
uh,
worries.
I mean, you have a 5-month-old and you said you're not feeling good, so I don't want to take up too much of your time.
No, that's
Um,
okay. I'm enjoying it. You've been my respite in this day of not feeling well. So it's fine. You can ask away.
okay, well, perfect. I wanted to see if you had a party story you could share with our listeners. So, not something that's occurred at a party, but let's say just an experience or a moment that stands out in your life so immensely you would easily tell it to friends at a party. It could be funny, it could be scary, it could be traumatic. There, we've had a whole grouping of stories here, but if there's something that comes to
Oh,
mind,
oh, 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 that's really hard. That's
I
really
I
hard.
can give you an example if you need time
Okay,
to think.
all right, give me your part. I mean, there's a few popping up in my mind.
Yeah.
There's like, but you give me. Why don't you give me yours? Have you
Okay.
shared yours before?
I've shared a few. I've shared
Okay,
one
go on.
way too many times, so I won't share it again.
Okay, all
Uh,
right.
I the first movie I was on, I won't say what it was because I want to be respectful of the strike and what we're doing right now. It was an independent film, but a bigger one. I was going to not face off. I was going to be attacked by Jeremy Renner in a very wintry trailer park area, and
Right.
I had to run out of the trailer with iced steps. We had those smooth van shoes to wear, so there's no
Oh
traction
dear.
whatsoever.
Oh dear.
Uh, so we were practicing the scene with the stunt coordinator, just trying it out. It's like -2 Fahrenheit. It's really, really chilly. And I have to get hit in the chest and the face with a snow shovel that's been padded, but only on the center part. So the center mass, but not the
Oh
edges.
no.
Um, we did 5 practice runs. We're like, hey, let's do one more for safety. The form looks great. Let's try it again. The stunt coordinator goes to hit me. I run into it and I flip. I fall back. I get back up, and I guess there is just a giant gash in the middle of my chin that's bleeding profusely and just gushing out. And it's so cold, I don't even feel it. I'm just ready to go. I'm happy to be on set. It's my first big, thing.
Yeah.
And all the color from the stunt coordinator's face went away. He was freaking out. He called the medic over. Everyone was freaking out. The director came over. Hey, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, what's going on? And I just
What's
had
going
this
on?
gigantic gash. I think it's still there. You can't see it in the light right now, but I just had this giant gash in my chin, but it would only be the start because we would do 28 takes filming that particular sequence. And I had torn my radial tendon. I bruised my bicep. I had something going on with my elbow after that. But I was so happy to be on set and had so much
Oh,
fun
I
doing
know.
it. I didn't
Yeah.
say a thing. So that's my lesser known party story, but it's just something that I had a ton of fun with. I got to work with Jeremy Renner. I got to hang out with
Yeah.
Elizabeth Olsen. It was the coolest. But yeah, that's
How
my
did
party
that work
story.
in terms of continuity then with your gash?
So I was I was portraying a essentially a meth dealer on a native reservation. So
Okay.
they just they said, oh, it actually blends in with the sores we already put on your face. So
Fair enough.
it just added to it. Yeah, so that's my party story. I hope I gave you enough time to think of one for yourself.
Well, I mean, I have a few of those, but actually one that just pops up. It's a silly one. Mine's a silly one. I don't know if I tell anyone at a party, but I think you'll appreciate this as an actor.
Oh
It's
yeah.
just one of those funny things where if you tell somebody outside of acting, they'll just like be like, what the fuck? But I obviously do a lot of voiceover auditions, and I have such an itchy nose right now. I don't know if it's my cat. Anyway, that's that. That's not the story. Right. This is the story.
That was the best one.
So that's the best one. I had such an itchy nose. The end. So I got a voiceover audition one day, and I don't know how they do it in the US, but some here in the UK, sometimes they'll send you a voice reference of what they want the voice to sound like.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I read the audition and I click on the voice reference, and guess what the voice reference is? It's my voice. It's my voice in a game. And I'm like, okay, this is me. Why? And then several questions went through my mind. I was like, why are they asking me to audition? Do they know that the person whose voice references they're asking is the person that they're asking to audition? Anyway, but I'm there like fairly confident. I mean, fairly confident because I'm like voice reference. I don't even need to listen to that. It's my voice. Do the audition, very happy, almost flattered that they've picked my voice. My voice. Never hear anything back. Like, what the fuck? So what I'm wondering now is which actor did they pick that sounded more like me than I do?
Did
Who is it?
did they just pick that out of a reference file or something? Like what you'd think they
I
would
honestly
know.
don't. Well, you'd think though they would know, unless like the client had picked it, and then the company that does all the casting and
Yeah.
stuff just like picked their a few of their people. Yeah,
Okay.
but I found that so bizarre because then I was like, I don't even. Why am I even auditioning for this? It's me.
Yeah.
And then to not get it was just hysterical. Just another one of those, oh, a day in the life of an
Mhm.
actor. This is what happened today. Um, yeah, I found that pretty funny actually.
I wish you would have received some sort of feedback for that as oh, you sounded too similar to the
How
reference.
hysterical would that have been? How hysterical would that have been? She sounds, but not quite getting the. This is just the most bizarre out of body thing that's happened to me. Like weird,
Oh my
so weird.
god. I I can't believe they didn't pick you.
I can't believe they didn't pick me.
That's ridiculous.
I mean, Or like if they knew that was the voice reference, why wouldn't you just go straight to me and be like, "We really like your voice. Why don't you just do this?"
Yeah.
Weird.
All it
Weird. I
takes
mean,
just
strange things happen in acting.
yeah, they need one email to your rep. Hey, has she been in a violent vocal cord accident? No? Well, then we'll take her. that's, that's all you need.
It's
Oh,
all we need.
speaking of which, because I've been so just enveloped in talking to you and hear more of your story, and it's been great. But I need to hear more about your stand up, which there's an 8-minute video on YouTube. I might have to plug into the show notes because it's amazing.
Oh, please
But
do.
any chance of maybe doing that again? Have you been doing some open mics? I mean, what's going on with that?
Oh God. Okay. This was something that I decided to do last year to push myself out of my comfort zone. And I really did push myself out of my comfort zone because it was fucking intense. And what I found bizarre was that I found it intense, and a lot of people on my course, they weren't even actors. And I was like, how are you getting up on stage? This is amazing that you are getting up on stage and doing all this. Whereas for me, as an actor who's been on stage, I still find it intimidating. How are you doing that? But they were great. Like
Yeah.
it was incredible. I loved it. I did a course at the Soho Theatre in London. Again, it was one of those things like quite hard to get into. So I was like, okay, well, the fact that I've got in must mean I have some stand-up talent. Maybe it's just telling a few jokes. Turns out it's not that. It's much harder than that. There's a theme throughout my life here. But yeah, we did the course, and then that culminated in like a showcase, which is that video that you saw on YouTube. And then after that, I was like, okay, guys, like, if you want to make a career in stand-up, you sort of have to do the open mics. And very similar to acting, I think, sort of start from the bottom, do these open mics where you might have sort of one or two people in the audience or somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and work your way up. And I started doing them. And again, I just discovered, like fashion journalism, that although I loved it, I didn't love it enough to do it. And it was, again, I was getting that very familiar sense of rejection that I'd felt from acting for so many years. And that now, after 10 years of being an actor, my career is a lot better. Obviously, it's in a lot better state than it used to be. I've got projects that are popular, and I'm working full time as an actor. I mean, that's fucking amazing in itself, right?
Yeah.
But I was like, God, if I have to go through that for stand up, I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can start again from the bottom. And it was a lot of late nights. You have to be really gigging every night, late. In London, I don't know how it is in the States, but in London, a lot of these gigs, anyone can do them, but you have to bring a person with you to fill up the audience. Is it the same in the
Oh yeah.
States?
I think here
Yeah.
it's actually two to four at this point. Yeah.
Who has that many friends?
I know.
I mean, I don't. Like, yeah.
No.
Yeah, so that's intense. I mean, how do you keep that up, doing that every single day of the week? Because if you wanted to do it in London, you can literally do it. You could do it every single day of the week. There's enough shows and enough open mics for you to do that every day of the week.
Yeah.
But imagine, like, every time you have to find someone, then go with that person, and then what I thought, also performing the same material, and sometimes it lands and it's great, and then sometimes it doesn't land, and I'm there thinking, right, it's the same material. Why are some people loving it and some people have no reaction to it? So that was for me another like mind fuck. And so all of those reasons, I was like, you know what, I did it. It was fun. I'd love to do it again, maybe one day, but I don't have it in me to open mic my way to the top. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Well, if this show ever tours and I'm in the UK for any reason with, a live podcast show or something, may have to have you on to do some light comedy
Please.
work. Hmm.
Let's do it.
You
Let's
have to
do
bring
it.
5 people though. I'm not sure if that's
Oh,
gonna be a
do
deal
the cats
breaker.
count?
Actually, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll do that's perfect.
They're very, they're very stoic. They don't say a lot, but I can tell in their eyes that they enjoy it.
Yeah. If their eyes
Yeah.
open a little bit more, they're laughing.
Yeah.
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 They
Yeah,
don't show
sure.
their emotions.
No, not a lot. No.
Well, the last I'll just lump it into two. The last thing I want to ask you before we do our awkward goodbye
Oh God.
is I want to see, one, if you have a piece of advice that you've held on to that you could share with our listeners that's maybe helped you with not only, acting, but in life in general. And if there's anything I can give a shout out or promote with this episode, could be a charity, it could be an organization you really enjoy. that you really want to support, but if there's anything that comes to mind on either side of those.
Okay, advice. Probably again to do with acting, because as you can tell, acting is life. Acting is my life. Um, I would say if you really if you really want to do it and you really feel like it's the thing for you, then you just have to do it. Because I think otherwise you'll regret it. You'll regret not trying. You'll regret not giving yourself a shot. And maybe it won't work out, and maybe it will, but you never know. And something I think one of my teachers possibly said in drama school was, and I didn't believe it at the time because I thought I was going to be famous like that. But actually, I've realized it's true, because this is right. I'll tell you the advice first, and I'll tell you. He was like, "Oh, just bear in mind," and a lot of people, actually, not just the teacher, but a lot of actors I've heard say this, after that. Bear in mind that to get going in this industry, you need to be in it for at least 10 years. And at the 10-year mark is where you'll see some sort of momentum. And I was like, fuck this. I'm not gonna have to wait 10 years. I'm special. And doesn't everybody think deep down? I think we all believe that we're special and we're the exception to the rule. And sometimes we are, and that does happen. But for most people, it's not the case. And now I've realized that this year is my 10th year anniversary of being an actor. And this is the year for me now with Baldur's Gate 3 that things have picked up really quite drastically with regards to that. So it turns out that there is some truth to it. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go in with that mindset, because I think sometimes when you go in with that mindset, you make yourself like wait those 10 years. So you don't necessarily, but if things aren't working out in like 2 or 3 years, I think it's sort of too soon. I think people expect us as actors to suddenly get famous or get success, whereas in most other industries, you wouldn't expect anyone to be a CEO in like a year.
Oh,
So why do we
absolutely.
expect actors? Why do we expect actors to suddenly be a leading role in a major Netflix show or whatever in a year or 2 years? It's unrealistic, but that's the expectation people have. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's such a
yeah,
good point. I'm with you in the 10 year. Mine was this year as well. So
yeah.
I'm with you right there.
And have you seen, like, was that your 10 years?
Yeah, I'd say last year was it was gearing up and everything was crescendoing, and then when the strike hit, that's when it hit a lull.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but I have noticed in the last few years that I do book a heck of a lot more, and I have been making my my annual salary from acting before the
Right.
strike occurred, which has been great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally agree. If it's if it's 1 or 2 years in, maybe keep going.
Give
It's
it a chance. Give it a
yeah,
chance. And I think that
yeah,
you're totally right about what you said about making your salary. Like when I think, okay, what does success mean to me as an actor? Yes, of course, it would be great to win awards and go to parties and be the lead in this and that and whatever. But actually, isn't it so good to be able to say, hey, I make 100% of my money. I can sustain myself from my art and from my acting. That for me is a massive win. Because when you think back at the beginning, when it was like an odd job here, an odd job there, I used to work as a children's entertainer, which was fucking soul destroying.
I got to
Let
bring
me,
you
that's the
back to the
whole,
show
that's,
for that.
we talk about that. We can talk about that. Because that was traumatic. That probably should have been my party story, but I think I've blocked so much of it out.
Oh my
But it
god.
was just so hard, and it was so hard to get money, and you're making like money from this and this, and now it's like, okay, you can breathe a little bit. Like, yeah, okay, we're not like millionaires, but to be able to sustain yourself and have a good life from acting is a big win, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. And I'm holding you to sharing that that child's entertainer story at some
Absolutely,
point in the
no problem.
future.
Part two. Part two would
um,
do it.
what if you do have something, what can I give a shout out to or promote with this episode as well? Do you have an
Um,
organization you really back or believe in, or maybe it's a charity or just something you really enjoy?
ah, nothing I can think of off the top of my head, to be
Oh,
honest.
okay. Favorite breakfast place I can recommend.
Favorite breakfast place in London?
We're just gonna go crazy. Yeah, because I've never been to
Let's
London,
go.
so if you can give me a great breakfast
Oh,
spot.
goodness. Well, there is this place called the Breakfast Club, does what it says on the tin, breakfast. I love how you're writing this down. That's
Oh,
great.
absolutely.
Um, there's oh god, now you've really got me. I don't go out for breakfast that much, but yeah, let's leave it at that.
Yeah, yeah,
Let's leave it
let's
at
leave it
that.
at
There
that.
we go. Breakfast club, but I will probably think of some better places. If you come to London, let me know. I'd think of some better
Oh, I
places
will.
than the
I
breakfast club.
will.
Yeah.
Devora, I need to know. This has been wonderful. I'm also so
Thank
sorry
you.
that I went over a little bit of time, but this has just been
No, it's fine. It's been
joy.
nice to chat. It's
It's
been
been
actually really
awesome.
nice to chat. Feels like we've just been catching up as old friends, even though we've
Oh
just
yeah.
met.
Oh yeah, this is how every single well, most of the episodes go.
Good.
It's two actors sitting down for coffee and talking about just bullshitting, honestly, just talking about
Literally
someone's life.
talking
Um
about our crazy lives.
yeah, this insane industry. I just want to say like this has been awesome. I can't wait to see what you do next. And I
Thank you.
one hope you feel better. Two, I hope your kiddo
I hope
doesn't
so.
give you too much guff.
I just all you can hope for that is that she sleeps through the night because she's not right now. So
Oh, she's oh my
uh,
god.
yeah, it's intense.
Well, this final part of the show should make it even better,
Oh
because we're
god.
doing what I like to call an awkward goodbye.
Oh god.
So all we're gonna do, I'll do a silent 3, 2, 1 countdown, and when I'm done, give us your best verbal and visual awkward goodbye.
Okay.
You think you're ready for that?
I I'm not gonna overthink it.
Perfect. Just throw it
All right.
away. Just throw it
All
away.
right. Just throw it away.
Just
Great
throw it
note.
away.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Yeah.
Here we go. In
Goodbye.